Welcome, and thank you for joining us for today's DealerOn webinar, How to Stop Showrooming and Sell More Cars. My name is Eliana Raggio, and I'll be your moderator today. And today's webinar is being presented by DealerOn. For anyone who isn't familiar with DealerOn, well, we're an award-winning website development company and digital agency, best known for our amazing SEO, the absolute best customer service, and the highest converting website designs in the industry, including the brand new Chameleon responsive website platform. We're so committed to lead conversion, optimization, and customer service that DealerOn is still the only company in the industry to offer a money-back lead guarantee program. So does your website company guarantee you a 50% lift in leads or your money back? Yeah, I didn't think so. Maybe you should check us out at our gorgeous brand new DealerOn website at DealerOn.com. We have a great show in store for you today. We're very pleased to have David Metter as our presenter today. David Metter is the president of AutoHook, the automotive division of Hook Logic, an industry-leading provider working with OEMs, agencies, vendor partners, and dealers to increase lead conversion, showroom visits, sales attribution, and brand loyalty and conquest rates. He began his career on a showroom floor, rising to become one of the top Chrysler salesmen in the country, and eventually moved his way up to general manager of a dealership. David then chose to head up sales for Autobase for nearly 5 years, where he helped grow the company from a small startup to the leading automotive CRM software vendor. He then spent more than 6 years as Chief Marketing Officer for Mile One Automotive, a large privately held automotive dealership group. Regarded as one of the foremost experts in the automotive marketing and e-commerce space, David is a frequent speaker at industry events, including Digital Dealer, the Global Automotive Conference, NADA, 20 Groups, and J.D. Power's Automotive Internet Roundtable. David brings a wealth of automotive knowledge and experience from both a dealer and service provider perspective. He's an avid automotive enthusiast, and he can be reached at david.metter@hooklogic.com. Now, during the presentation, if you have any questions, please use the question feature located on the corner of your screen to submit them. At the end of the presentation, we'll answer those questions of general interest. If we're unable to get to your question live, don't worry. We're going to try to respond to you by email later today. Also, don't forget, a link to download a copy of the webinar recording will also be emailed to you later today for your reference, and please feel free to share it with your friends and colleagues. Ooh, and guess what? Ooh, our good friends at AutoHook, they're giving away not one, but 2 great prizes today on the webinar. 2 of you lucky webinar attendees are going to win a $250 e-gift card from AutoHook. Can I get an oh yeah? Oh yeah. You have to be on the live broadcast to win it though, so stay tuned. You could be the one walking away with one of these awesome prizes today. Also, at the conclusion of the webinar, you're going to receive a short survey. Please fill it out. We're always looking for great feedback from our audience. Today, we're going to randomly select a couple of people from all those completed surveys to also win some Google prizes. And hey, do you tweet much? Well, you know what? We hope you do. We'd love to see what you have to say about today's presentation, so please tag us in it. Hashtag DealerOnWebby. You can reach me at Eliana Raggio. You can also hit up David Metter at David A. Metter, or Lead2Show. That's with a 2, Lead2Show. We look forward to seeing what you're saying. So let's get started. Let's learn how to stop showrooming and sell more cars. David Metter, long-time listener, first-time presenter. How you doing?
I'm good, and I think I passed the first part of my test of being able to transition slides, right?
You did good. You did good. I had no problems with you whatsoever. It was so funny because I was waiting to see if you were going to miss it. It's just a private joke between me and David. We've gotten to know each other quite well over this past few days. So, David, I want to tell you, we do a lot of webinars here at the DealerOn webinar series about how hot mobile is and things you can do on mobile. But one of the things that we don't talk about a lot is the downside of mobile. And I do believe you have nailed it. Showrooming is definitely the downside, in my opinion, of mobile, and it affects every dealer out there, I think. So I'm really, really happy that you chose this subject to discuss and tell dealers how we can get around this. Very, very timely, and thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited, mainly because it reminds me of a similar time back in the dawn of the internet, and how dealers had one opinion on how they were going to handle that internet consumer, and consumers certainly had a different opinion on how that process was going to go. And you had dealers kind of separate into a couple of different buckets. I see the same exact thing happening with mobile usage, with showrooming, and how that's going to affect both buckets, that consumer and the dealer. So I'm excited.
I'm excited too, and I know I got a sneak peek at the slide deck. Audience, you're in for a great show, so settle in and pay attention. Get your pens and papers out. You're going to need them. You have a lot of information to get to, so without further ado, why don't you tell the audience the kinds of things we're going to be learning about today?
Great. Well, I want to make sure that that everyone who attends has a real understanding of what the term showrooming means. Too many times we talk about things and we don't address kind of that definition of what it is. And I always joke about my time when I was a chief marketing officer. That first year and a half, like, I was really quiet because people were throwing terms at me that I'd literally never heard before. I was more of a car guy than somebody who sat in a bigger chair, and so I felt a little dumb. And I certainly don't want anybody to walk away from this not having a full understanding of what showrooming is and how it applies to them. So we'll talk about lessons learned from the retail industry. There's a lot of things that happen in retail that, especially when it comes to mobile and the showrooming topic, that we can learn from what's happened to big box retailers like Best Buy, and how that can be applied to our big box retail industry, in auto. We'll also talk about how we can have some absolute executables when we disconnect today. I want to be able to not just tell you, here are the things and here are the stats, but here are some 3 or 4 things that you can walk away with. 2 or 3 of them you can do directly today if you choose to do them. A couple of them you might have to nurture through your marketing initiatives, but certainly you'll have a basic understanding of execution, and I want to make sure that I'm real clear with that. And then at the end, certainly I think it's always fun to have a Q&A session. I call it the Stump the Dummy, and I don't mind being the dummy. If I tell you that I don't know, I really truly don't know, and I won't try to answer the question. I won't ask another question just to push away the answer. So okay. I'll do my best to handle those appropriately.
For the record, I call it Stump the Presenter, and that is not my wording, okay? Just for the record. All right, audience, when you have a question, please send it on in. We will probably hold all your questions until the end, but please take it away, David.
Excellent. So I think the place to start is to make sure that everyone has a firm understanding of what showrooming is. Showrooming really started in the retail industry, and it was the practice of browsing goods at a store and then buying them online. And whether you know it or not, you've probably participated in some type of showrooming at some time in your buying process. And the best one, as an example, is certainly Amazon. When people physically walk into a store and they're able to then pull up whatever item that is, and then be able, at a push of a button, to be able to purchase that at in another entity other than the store in which they saw it. So this is really becoming the new normal in the retail industry. There are a number of consumers that walk into a big box retailer like Best Buy every single day. They do their product investigation, kind of their own walk around, or they'll get somebody at Best Buy to walk them through the product, and so that they know that this TV is better than this TV, or this receiver is better than the other receivers. And then very quickly they're able to do their own investigation as it relates to price, and be able to see if this big box retailer is competitive with the other prices that are at their fingertips. You've got to remember that 2 and 3 and 4 years ago this didn't apply, because that amount of information might have been there, but it wasn't in a handheld device that made it truly accessible when you're in that situation. And so, you laugh at this cartoon, but the reality really sets in. When you think about even going on and trying on a pair of shoes where you can literally have the size and have the feature advantage benefit kind of laid out for you, and then click quickly and you purchase those shoes somewhere else. I am, I'm married and I have 5 daughters. So we have a total of 6 kids, but 5 daughters who have, purchase needs, they call them purchase needs, every single day. And I can tell you that more than half of our purchases are now in this same kind of setting where we may investigate certain things, but the purchases line up on our front doorstep every single day.
I was going to say, I don't usually do it for many things, but Bruce, for instance, wrote in and he says, I am definitely and shamefully a culprit. And I have to admit, I have showroomed during shoes. I literally tried on a pair of shoes, happened to look online, saw it for half the price. I'm not an idiot. I'm going to buy it for half the price.
Well,
no, you're not alone, Bruce. He's like, I'm not alone. You're not alone.
And I got to tell you, I do it too. I was looking at a pair of shoes, same thing, and I found them, the shoes that I was looking at were about $250. I did a quick search, thinking that if it's within $10 or $15, I'm not gonna deviate and do that. I'll just go ahead and buy it for the retailer. But I found them for the same pair of shoes, same size, same style, same everything, for $107. That's when you make a conscious decision to purchase online and then have them delivered the next day.
Yeah, it's that instant gratification. How much is that instant gratification worth it to you? So yeah, you're right. $5, $10. I'd rather take the shoes home right now instead of wait 3, 4, 7 days to get them. But to save that much money, I mean, at what point do you say I'd rather do business with the brick and mortar instead of the click and mortar? And so how do you keep people from doing that?
Well, and that's been Best Buy's nightmare for the past 2 or 3 years. So consumers would do exactly what I said. They would walk through, they'd test drive the product, they'd compare it online, and then that profit transfer, that sale transfer, is happening within Amazon and certainly not at Best Buy. I mean, Best Buy went through some pretty crazy solutions, like blocking cell phone usage and blocking Wi-Fi usage within their big box retail stores. They thought, hey, if we just do this, then the consumer really will be forced to purchase from us. Well, that didn't work. And so now
I did not know that. They did that?
Well, hey, trust me, they're not the only ones. I mean, have you guys ever been in an event or in a store where all of a sudden your cell phone usage is bad? Now, you may blame it on the steel structure that's in there, but in a lot of cases, there's a lot of blockage of cellular connectivity and Wi-Fi connectivity for this type of reason. So, as we sit here and we think about that nightmare that really was established within retail, and just because Best Buy is one of the largest big box retailers, I use them as the example, but I could multiply this out tenfold. You can think about what really they stress about, because when you've got a site like Amazon that's building tools that make it so easy for you to either scan a barcode on the side of a box within that store, snap a picture, or just say what it is. And it basically does what it says in the search bar there. It screws local businesses. And so you go, well, that could never happen in retail automotive. Well, let me tell you, and it was interesting, the announcement that came out a few weeks ago, there's a third-party site that has just brought out, in fact, they're advertising on traditional media on TV commercials, where there's an app where you can scan the barcode on the inside of the door on the car that resides on your physical car lot and get the best possible price. Now, if you don't have the best possible price, where do you think that app takes the consumer? So this happens just like this. Now, you could say Amazon's not going to deliver a car to the front door of my house. Yeah, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I didn't think that this would also happen. And so I think one of the things that I want to get through your head today is that things are changing, and they're changing pretty dramatically for the big box retailers' worst nightmare, where I have 4 and 5 and 6 boxes from Amazon on my, and this is no exaggeration, by the way, that get physically delivered to our house and making it so much easier. You know, we just went, my wife and I snorkel. There were things that we wanted to add to our snorkeling kits. We were able to order them that day. The following day, they're sitting on our doorstep.
I mean, that's pretty sweet. That is really sweet.
Well, it's sweet until you are the snorkel gear company that tries to bring people into the store in order to sell, and they have no online presence. It makes it tough. And so that's really the transition now that we have to think of how does showrooming in a car dealership happen? What are the things that we need to worry about as a problem? And that's okay. We can have problems, but how do we resolve those problems knowing that 6 out of every 10 of our consumers are using a smartphone while they're on the dealership lot? Some of us have this misconception that they're tweeting and they're checking in on Facebook and they're doing all these things. I got to tell you, they're doing the exact same things that we just talked about as the pain points for big box retailers in that retail space. So let's talk about some stats. This is looking back at a great piece that was put together at the beginning of last year by Cars.com and Placed. So this is a case study that is easily accessible if you do just a quick Google search on any of this. But they went back and looked at J.D. Power information and saw that 71% of consumers were visiting an automotive website or an app via a smartphone. So 7 out of every 10 consumers were on a smartphone looking at some type of automotive site entity. In fact, with DealerOn, 40% of their traffic is being shown on a mobile platform. Now, there's an additional 10% that they break out that's on a tablet. So really, you could argue that almost half of the traffic is coming in some kind of a mobile setting, with 50% on traditional. And guys, I got to tell you that this is happening across our industry, where 3, 4, and 5 of the 10 people who are physically looking at inventory and other pieces within your sites are doing it from a mobile device. So that's got to be of concern to us. A, to make sure that we're doing a good job in rendering on the sites, so that when a consumer goes there, they're seeing what you want them to see. So we're up to our first poll question.
That's right. Audience, we want you to take part in our poll questions. We have 2 of them for you today. This is the first one. It's on the screen now. We want to know how well you think you know your customers. So here's the question. What percentage of consumers that used their mobile devices on a dealership's lot visited an additional dealership within a day? How many do you think it is? Please select one of the following answers. Do you think it's 36%, 41%, 62%, 78%, or you think all of them do it? What percent of consumers that used their mobile devices on a dealership's lot visited an additional dealership within 24 hours? Oh yeah, I'm excited to find out about this one too. Please select one of the following answers. Do you think it's 36%, 41%, 62%, 78%, or 100%? Heidi wrote in, do you mean visited online or in person? I believe we're saying in person. Is that right, David? We're saying that they visited a different dealership in person within a day.
That is correct.
In person, Heidi. Okay, thank you for the great question. And really looking forward to, oh my goodness, almost everyone has voted. Our audience today is on the ball, David. So audience, you rock. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to close this poll and share the results. Okay, only 4% of today's audience thought it was 36%, because that is pretty low, right? 19% of today's audience think it's 41%. Now, the majority of today's audience, 40% of today's audience, in fact, think it's as high as 62%. Not far behind, though. 36% of today's audience think it's as high as 78%. And then there's 2% of people out there who think it's everyone. Every consumer who uses their mobile device on a dealership lot is going to go to another dealership that same day. So, David, I got to ask, is there a right answer to this? They did research on this, right?
They absolutely did. In fact, in that same study that I referenced in the previous slide, you'll see the answer is 62%. So a consumer who was at a dealership on a mobile device, they physically walked out and went to another dealership. And I will tell you that, based on what we have seen, heard, and read over the last 5 years, where dealership visits are actually going down, I would argue, this is my personal perspective on this, but based on what I've seen historically in the auto industry and in my time of being at dealerships, I would tell you that I believe that the curve is going to go back up. Where you have a mobile device, and so I used the example earlier of having that barcode scanner in a third-party site that allows that consumer to see maybe a better price, that's going to push that consumer somewhere else. Or if they do their own investigation and looking at another dealership site while they're at your dealership, and this is happening every single day, obviously, that's going to drive those consumers to now go to another dealership. We've not seen anything like this. It's actually trended down since the internet, the dawn of the internet. I believe that mobile devices will start to turn that back up.
62% is a lot.
That's a lot. And so what are we going to do about it? Well, we'll talk about that in just a second. How about what do they do when they are on these different sites? And that's really setting up our second poll question.
It is. All right, your last poll question, audience. You did so well on the last one. We hope you'll do the same for us this time. Your second poll question is on the screen now. We want to know what you think. What percentage of the customers that use a mobile device on a dealership's lot compare prices with a competing dealer? I mean, what do you think they're doing on their mobile device, right? Please select one of the following answers. Do you think it's 15%, 20%, 25%, 30%, or 35%? How many of them are actually showrooming you with a competing dealer? That's what we want to know. Once we get a majority of those votes in, we're going to close the poll and share the results. What percentage of the customers that use a mobile device on a dealership's lot are actually showrooming and comparing prices with your competition? Please select one of the following answers. Audience, you guys are so good. Heidi wrote in, 100% is not an option? Well, not for this one. Do you think it's 100%, Heidi? But audience, thank you so much. Let's see. I'll give you another couple seconds because some votes are still coming in. A lot of people are voting on this one. Almost everyone has voted. You guys are awesome. Okay, let's close this poll and share the results. Are you ready for this, David?
I am.
All right, let's see what the audience thinks. All right, let's see. No one picked 15%. Only 2% think it's about 20%. Only 4% of today's audience think it's about 25%. So here we get to the nitty-gritty. 27% of today's audience think it's as high as 30%. And the majority, 67% of today's audience, think that if their customers are using a mobile device at the dealership, they must be shopping their competing dealer for prices. 35% of today's, 67% think it's as high as 35%. David, what is the answer?
Well, the answer, based on the same study from Cars.com and Placed, is 25% are price at competing dealers.
So that's not terrible. It's not
Right.
great, but it's not terrible. It's not as bad as some people had thought, right? So what are
Now,
the other people doing?
well, it's interesting. You can see here that they're doing extensions of comparing prices. They're checking the trade-in vehicle pricing. They're calculating payments. They're still doing some research, but for the most part, a good majority of them are worried about what they're going to pay and how much they're going to get on trade and how that conforms into payments. So really you could argue that those are really interconnected because they all have to do with price, payments, and offers.
Well, it's not terrible. I mean, it's still your sale to lose.
That's
If they're trying to calculate their payments and all that kind of stuff. But 25% of your customers are actively showrooming, is what you're saying. And this study was arguably from a year ago. So those numbers, until they do that study again, one can only suspect that as the popularity of mobile goes up, that those numbers might change.
Well, and I'm glad that you brought that up because that was actually how I was going to lead into the next piece by saying that these numbers are from a study in 2014. And if you just apply what the mobile web traffic numbers were when the study was performed to what they are trending towards now, you are going to see a noticeable increase in all of these numbers. The reason why I tell you this is because if you jump in now, you are going to be very similar to those beginning trendsetters within the early days of internet, making sure that you've got your ducks in a row, making sure that you are prepared so that when the more of the consumers come down this path, you're ready for that. Just like in the dawn of the internet, when you started, early on, you had the ability to stay ahead of the curve of your competitors, which was really important if you remember back in 2008 and 2009 when the market really tanked. If you look, there were some great similarities to the dealers that performed really, really well in that time period to their abilities to perform online. So I would tell you that if this is a trend that we've seen in other industries that's coming through into auto, the earlier that you accept this and execute on this, the better you're going to be. So don't be this guy. I mean, this is a real sign that was in a real storefront where the store manager got to a point of frustration because people were coming into the store and just looking. So instead of being thoughtful, progressive, and executing well, they went to the latter. They said, hey, I'm just going to charge $5. And if you buy something from me, I'll go ahead and deduct that $5.
Oh my God.
And so, but I know all of you are probably going, that would never happen. It actually did in the automotive industry. If you go back, and I'm a history buff within the auto industry, think about how some dealers handled the dawn of the internet and other dealers handled it. There was a pretty good group of dealers that said, hey, I'm not going to advertise online. I'm not going to put my prices online. I'm not going to put pictures online. I'm not even going to have a website. I'm not going to do it because they're going to have to come to me. Well, in hindsight, that was really stupid. And so what is this sign telling you? It's the same thing. It's just packaged differently. And so how are we going to perform in a different way when we see the consumers handling their business a certain way? Well, option A is we can do what I talked about earlier in the dawn of the internet. We don't do anything. We can just kind of, decide that we're going to live in this wonderful bubble and our business is really good right now, right? Because we had a great month last month, sold lots of cars, and the month before that, business is really good. So, if you do anything as far as kind of searching through history, there are plateaus in our business and there are downfalls in our business. Some are worse than others. This is a good time in our business. You got to prepare for times that aren't going to be as good. So, if you do nothing, then the pro is that you'll have a wonderful surplus of marketing money that you can go and spend on balloons. And you do a really good job at that. And in some dealerships, they spend more in balloons than they do in their digital marketing and advertising.
Okay, that's actually true. I actually know of a dealership who does that. They spend more in balloons than they do on their own website. I know.
It's really sad. So I know that none of us are in that because you wouldn't be on this webinar. You would be on the cool new trends in balloon making webinar that's running at the same time as this one. So the con is that your market share leaves you. And this is no joke. You know, you go back to 2008, 2009, when the market was really, really tough. The dealerships that did really well, they didn't sell more cars than what they were doing. They just picked up market share. And so when OEMs look at this, they look at, you know, hey, you can only sell as many cars as the market's going to buy, but we want to have more share. And you at the dealership level have to think exactly the same, because you want to make sure that you protect what you have and grow what is around you from your direct competitors. So what does this really mean? It really means kind of seize the day. You know, everyone wants to, they think we're playing the same game. We're really not. You can change the game, and I'm all about game changers. So I like to think about staying calm and going out and seizing the market before the market becomes mature. And so how are we going to do this? We're going to think about this in very small execution chunks. Now, this one, you might go, well, no kidding, David. We've got to have a site that's going to respond well to the consumer screen, whether it's large screen or small screen. You got to make sure that you're there. Some of you think that you're there, but if you do a little bit of investigation, you'll notice that your sites don't render, or elements of your sites don't render perfectly. You might have a great site provider in DealerOn, but you may have extensions on your site that plug in that don't render well. Make sure, think about it as a consumer would think about it. Go onto your site, go through a whole inventory search, go through lead form conversion, go through chat and text, go through all of the actions that you're asking your consumer to perform, and don't just do it once, do it multiple times. That should be something that is part of your checklist. I can tell you, even when I was the CMO of a large dealer group, I went through, much to the disdain of my dealerships and some of our direct, digital marketing people, I would find glitches. And I want to make sure that each and every consumer has that great pathway so that when they get down to that mobile device, it's clear, concise, and also making sure that they're going to do exactly what I want them to do. But don't just do this on your sites. Don't just make sure that you are responding well or have an adaptive platform, but also check out and see what your competition's doing. Know what they're doing. Not so much for you to follow in their path. Follow and see what their shortcomings are and what their strong points are, and see if those fit into your marketing and strategy pieces. A lot of people ask me, when we get to that whole, screen size rendering, do I have an opinion? And this is my opinion. Do I have an opinion on whether a dealership should invest in an app? And the answer is yes and no. And I'll explain that. I'm not.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. So I don't want to sound like I'm wishy-washy, because if you know me, you'll know, based on my history, I'm definitely not wishy-washy. So, do I believe, if I owned a dealership right now, would I have an app? The answer is yes. For a select group of my customers, I look at it as more of a service-oriented and a customer retention-oriented application. And what I mean by that is that I have a group of customers who know me, like me, follow me, spend money with me in my service lane, and who are repeat customers within my business. Those customers will use an app because they found some value in my business over and over again to do that. Think about the apps that you use right now. Are they apps that you use once, twice, or 3 times? Absolutely not. They're apps that you use every single day. I fly Delta. I use that app I feel like almost every single day. I use Spotify app, now the new Apple Music app. I'm starting to navigate through that. Use it every single day. A car buying app. Am I going to use that every single day? The answer is probably no. I mean, the percentage of consumers that are going to do that are pretty low. And so am I going to use that as a conquest car buying application? Probably not. So hopefully you've heard my opinion. This is my opinion. I don't, and I own app companies, so I'm not anti-app. I absolutely love apps, but I love apps for the right group of consumers. And so that's my opinion. However, I have a very strong opinion on executing on those mobile sites. And I believe that one of the best opportunities for you to connect and communicate with a consumer, think about where they are. They're most likely, they're always mobile, obviously, but in most cases, we're seeing major trends around consumers that are in a dealership looking at a competitor dealership inventory. They're not going to form fill all of the crazy stuff that we might want in a traditional lead form. They're just not going to do it. But they will text. They will do that because they do that already. Think about it. Walk down the street. You probably end up bumping into somebody because they're doing exactly that. They're texting somebody, communicating with them. So that's a very natural piece. If you have a mobile site and you don't have the ability to have mobile chat or, in this case, texting with a consumer, I'm telling you, you're missing out on the opportunity to really directly connect in a time where that consumer, if you connect with them, you can probably get them to do exactly what we were talking about earlier, leaving the dealership and going to your dealership instead. So this is an action in which I believe is one of those do it today type of things. And I'm not getting paid by any of the chat providers or the text providers. I just, from a consumer's point of view, it's the way that you want to be able to communicate. And you want to do it, don't do it in a halfway mode. Don't do it with personal texting. There's no, if I owned a dealership, I want to make sure I control the conversation a little bit and be able to report back on that. So go with a reliable provider that gives you the option to really do something, strategically for your business, but more importantly, keep yourself in compliance. Big deal. So the third step of execution is think about your dealership and think about what's around your dealership and think about protection. So, really in the big scheme, you really can't protect yourself on the traditional web. Consumers can pull you up wherever they can pull you up, no matter what. Now, there is geo-targeting, really cool differentiation of message. We do a lot of that internally, but we're not going to talk about that today, around going after a consumer in a specific targeted area. I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about fencing around my dealership and protecting my turf. Like, again, if I put myself back into the dealership or overseeing a number of dealerships, or if I'm at the OEM level and I really want to protect, we do a lot with Subaru. There's 600 Subaru retailers. I want to protect those dealers, those retailers, and their investment in there. Geofence mobile advertising is one wonderful way to do that, where you may not get a lot of click-throughs and you may not get a lot of actions, but at least you're protecting yourself in a position that is in your backyard, making sure that if a consumer does pull something up, whether it's in a mobile app or in just traditional mobile website browsing, you're going to be able to be there and, more importantly, have a message that's going to keep, hopefully, your competitor from also advertising in your backyard. Big deal. Again, I don't own any stock in any mobile advertising or geofencing companies. This is as I think about, as a consumer, what I'm going to do and how I'm going to, from your side, eliminate any issues around competition. Protect yourself from that showrooming entity. And so what would you do once you protect that backyard? What are the types of messages that you are going to show? Don't show something that is high funnel, high level, hey, we're awesome, come see us. These consumers are in a different mindset. You got to remember that they're not doing, for the majority of them, investigating. They're really finding inventory, pricing, payments, trade-in, and dealership information. So let's provide that to them. Let's make sure in these examples, and most of these are OEM examples, but they can apply very easily at the dealership level to, hey, this is where we are. You want to figure out how to get to us? We'll map it for you. Oh, we can also tie in different programs, whether it's a mobile coupon or an incentive, to drive that consumer in. We can also give them price payments that will appeal to their senses because they're low in the funnel, decision-making consumers on mobile. Or, again, another type of mapping and contact. You'll see that the numbers are clickable, easy to get to, and dynamically placed based on the distance to the dealership, which is really cool. This is an easy execution piece. Who you're doing business with now currently on digital advertising and your website business can probably tie in some really cool geofence mobile advertising opportunities. But let's take one step further and think about execution. And this is what we did, and I personally did about 1.5 years ago, and it was really inspired by the insights that were in that Cars.com and Placed white paper, along with other things that were coming out from the retail and the travel industry. And I applied them to the auto industry. The great thing about auto industry is that you almost have to physically go into the big box. You can't just order a car online. Now, people are talking about total transaction online is going to happen. We talked about that 10 years ago. It hasn't happened. Technology is getting better. Small percentage of consumers are going to go there, but AutoTrader just did a study that showed consumers and the younger consumers really do like the engagement at the dealership level. So I think that's very encouraging for us. We should know that. But how are we going to figure out how to drive consumers in this mobile environment down into the dealership seat that we want them to sit in? How can we do that? Well, here's my fourth piece of execution. We take very similar things that what we just talked about and make sure that we protect a dealership within their backyard. So if a consumer is at a dealership that's a competitor to, let's say, your dealership, when they go onto your site from that competitor's showroom, they're going to see a different engagement. They may see a higher test drive offer to drive those consumers out of that dealership and into your dealership. Now, how does that happen? I'll explain in a second. You also have to have a good call to action where it's simple. Get an email address, get a text to number, and that's all you really need. You really don't need all of the information in that mobile setting. You don't need name, address, phone number, email address, all that stuff. You don't need it. You want the consumer to come in. You will get the consumer's information once they physically come into your dealership. But you also want to have great executables past that, like taking an incentive like this and pushing it into Passbook. Why would you want that? Or why would you want it to go into Google Wallet? Well, let me tell you why. The upside to apps, and this is a great upside, is that they're location and notification based. So where consumers may not live in a car buying app, they will use apps as a nice transition for simplicity, like in this case. But once they reside in that app, then we can do really cool notification and location-based type of triggers. So when the consumer gets closer to the dealership, we can send reminders because Passbook and Google Wallet are what? They're apps. But we also want to make sure that they get to the dealership or that they can contact the dealership. And I will also tell you that great integration partners that use mobile texting, we can also integrate that into the conversation where you see add to Passbook. We already do that with one of our partners, Contact at Once. So if a Contact at Once mobile chat or mobile texting dealer integrates that in there, they can literally start texting the consumer at that point, knowing without a doubt that that consumer is sitting in a competitive dealership. So what do you see from your side? Well, dealers can go in and they can mark the dealerships that they want to conquest, so that when a customer is sitting in one of those competitive dealerships, they see exactly what I just showed you in that targeted opportunity. So we can share no incentive with some customers, an incentive for normal customers, or an enhanced incentive for consumers that are sitting within the dealership properties of those circles on the left-hand side to drive them in. And know without a shadow of a doubt that those consumers were sitting in those dealerships when they were incented, and more importantly, when they were driven into the dealership. Now, I'm not going to pretend for a second to say that you're going to get 50 consumers a month that are doing this. But as the website, the mobile website opportunities continue to enhance and more consumers are going through this, then you're going to see it. I can tell you this morning, we've had hundreds of impressions from dealers that utilize our product that are sitting in competitive dealerships. So if you extrapolate that across thousands of dealerships, it's amazing to know that this is happening, and it's a Thursday morning, guys. It's not busy at the dealerships for the most part. So not only will you know this, but you'll also know when the physical redemption or that physical showroom visit happens. So I gave you 4, and there are more, but these 4 I think are the vital, important foundational pieces for you to become a showrooming execution artist. Not stop showrooming, it was a little misleading, but actually embrace it and be able to drive consumers in a conquest opportunity from your competitors, get in the game early, change the game as I mentioned, but more importantly, protect your fertile ground, protect yourself from these types of things happening to you. And when you do these 4 execution steps, you put yourself in a position to be able to report back, whether, because most of you have bosses. So it gives you the opportunity to have great data, whether it's from your mobile texting, from your ability to see how much traffic is actually rendering on mobile, to your mobile advertising display, and then geo-fencing around that, and then incentivizing them in a way that you can absolutely know for a fact that these consumers form-filled through this position, but more importantly, physically showed up into your showroom. That's always been, you know, our core competency. And so I show you this, and you can't read it on the screen, but if you look in the handout section, I actually have the same report that you can download, that you can have, along with 2 other different handouts that talk about this specific topic around attribution, because we didn't talk about attribution, sales reporting today. We can certainly do that in the future. But this gives you a real sense of knowing where those consumers came in that mobile environment and how they physically attach themselves into your dealership. And did they buy? Did they buy from you, or did they go and buy from someone else? And so the resources that I'd like to throw out to you in addition to our talk today, there are a number of blog entries that I have on different sites. First one being Digital Dealer, and if you do a quick search on their blog, you'll find the 10 things dealers need to know about mobile. Talk about the 4 things that we talked about today, in addition to some others that I think that would be very helpful for you. A great resource is our own blog. Going there, not only will you get a sense of our direction around mobile and really protecting our dealerships in that environment, and by extension our OEM partnerships in that environment, but really a better talk around sales modeling, things that you can do to drive more traffic, and certainly know that those showroom visitors exist. Along with the ADM blog post, Showroom Stealing. It's kind of a fun take on that around just a quick story if you're interested, and then the handouts that I talked about on attribution reporting. My hope is that when you walk away today, you'll understand how you can build conquest opportunities that will boost your market share. And I don't say that you know, halfway. I really believe that you have to have the mindset that you have to protect your turf, what you have existing, but you also have to figure out how you're going to continue to drive great market share, which means sell more cars. When the market goes down, protect that, what you have in your turf, and you go out and you try to boost market share. Even though you might not sell more cars, you have more market share over your competitors. Also, have really the first of its kind showrooming solution to you. So go and be the trendsetter within your marketplace. Go set yourself up for success and really get that advantage over your competitors. I loved sharing what I did. Some of my other executives at Mile One never liked that. But what I always said was, by the time that they catch up to what we're doing, we're on to the next thing. So have this as your thing now, so that when you move on, you're already an expert at this when everyone else is kind of trying to catch up to the mobile environment and the showrooming aspect. And then lastly, increase your mobile conversion rate and figure out what you do really well day after day. What are some of the trigger points and some of the pain points on your existing mobile site, and how you can drive more consumers through that site. And with that, I'm certainly open for the Stump the Dummy session.
Stump the presenter session, David.
That's
David,
right.
that was wonderful. Thank you so much. That was really great. Audience, I hope you agree, and we're ready for your questions. If you haven't gotten your questions yet in for today's DealerOn webinar presenter, the David Metter, now is a great time to send them in. We're going to get to your questions in just a moment. Before we do, though, we got some fun to take care of. I wish I had some game show music right now. I don't. But it's that time. If you missed it at the beginning of the webinar, well, I announced that our good friends at AutoHook are giving away 2 great prizes today on the webinar. Not 1, but 2 of you lucky webinar attendees are each going to win a $250 e-gift card from AutoHook. Oh, yeah, that is a lot of money, Bruce. Thank you for writing that in. Get ready. Get to your keyboards. And if you are the first person to write in the correct response to one of our giveaway questions, you will be winning one of these awesome prizes today. So good luck, everyone. Get to your keyboards. Here we go. Here's your first question. I hope you were paying attention. How many daughters does David Metter have? Oh, my goodness.
I know that answer. I know.
Woo, that's a lot of people writing in. Oh gosh. All right, let me scroll up here. You guys were paying attention. Okay. I am happy to report. Oh my goodness. It's so funny how the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people who answered this question they're the fastest typers. I know I'm putting off. I am very happy to report, David Sharp, you are our winner today. You have just won yourself a $250 e-gift card from AutoHook. David Sharp, writing your name down, baby. David
Woo!
Sharp has not, has won before. So, all of you fast typers, you're all right up there. I see you, Chris. I see you, Karis. They're all there. Katie, Tamara, you're all up there. All right, David, if you wouldn't mind writing on in, because I keep forgetting the name of your dealership. I'll never forget. Name of your dealership, maybe. Okay, this one, I'm very excited about this next question because in actuality, David did not give the answer to this question. I did. We've never had that happen before. So, David, sit back. Get yourself the answer. I'm so sorry. The answer was 5. He has 5 daughters. Yes. He has 5 daughters, 6 kids altogether. So I imagine there's a boy in there someplace, right?
Yes. And somebody typed into me 5 that we know about. So that's all.
Ouch. That hurts. Right in the gut. Is the son? Is he like the youngest? Did you keep going till you had a son, or is he in the middle?
No, he's second oldest, and he's in college and he plays football, which is awesome. So, right.
So he's not at home anymore. So you are left with all the girls in the house.
Yeah, we only have 3 left in the house.
3 left. All right, got a little bit more work to do. Okay. Yes, the answer was 5. He has 5 daughters, 6 kids. I don't know how you do it and still look so young. Okay. So thank you, David. He's with Elliott Auto Group, of course. Darn it, I knew that. All right. Your second question. David, if you wouldn't mind, sit this one out, my friend. You've already a winner today, obviously. So everyone else, here's your chance to win another $250 e-gift card from AutoHook. Good luck. And by the way, I'm the one who said the answer. I just want to point that out. What CRM company did David leave the dealership operations world for? Let's see who was paying attention at the very beginning when I was introducing him and reading his bio. Oh, our winner today is Bruce Schneider with the correct answer of Autobase. That is correct, Bruce. You are a winner. Can I get a hell yeah? All right, Bruce, I'm writing your name down. Bruce, I need you to write in and let me know what dealership you're from, my friend. We're going to get that prize out to you. Actually, super duper fast. You'll have it like within the next hour or so, I think. Bruce, what dealership are you from? Bruce, are you there? Did you faint? Oh, here we go. He's with Findlay Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram in Wilsonville. Congratulations, Bruce. Oregon, Wilsonville, Oregon. Thank you. And audience, don't worry about it if you didn't win today. You know what? We give away cool prizes every week. So come on back to another DealerOn webinar and you could have a chance to win a really awesome prize. And thank you everyone for playing along. Of course, congratulations to David Sharp and Bruce Schneider, our winners today. And of course, we got to thank our great friends at AutoHook for their incredible generosity. I'm wondering what you guys are going to spend $250 on. I hope it's something good. All right, David Metter, are you ready for some questions from the audience?
I am.
Oh, there we are. Okay, go to the next slide if you wouldn't mind, sir.
I can do that.
David Sharp is saying, thank you, AutoHook. All right, your first question, let me scroll up here, is actually from the winner. He actually sent this in very early on when we were talking about Best Buy. And you were telling us how they were blocking the mobile reception inside their stores, which I couldn't believe that it actually ever happened. I mean, they sell cell phones for Pete's sake. How can somebody test one out? Anyway, he wrote in, do you think it's illegal to do that now? And so I was having a little conversation with him. I said, I can't imagine it's illegal. And he said, I think it is illegal. And then he found something from fcc.gov that says actually jamming cell phones and GPS equipment is against the law. So dealerships should not be doing that, I'm suggesting. Is that correct?
Yeah, and please don't think that I was suggesting that we should block cell signals within dealerships. I will tell you that it is illegal to do that. However, that doesn't mean that people don't do it. If any of you have ever been to a NASCAR event, I think this is the best example. If you've been to a NASCAR event, which is now one of the primary sponsorships is Sprint. If you have a Verizon or if you have an AT&T phone, try to get a call or try to do anything at an event where we're talking about an open area where you should be able to see a satellite, right, and be able to connect. And for some odd reason, you just can't. Now, please don't take my comments as saying that I think that NASCAR is blocking this and that Sprint's doing that. I'm just telling you that in the real world, it shouldn't happen, but it does. And so, I don't think, I think that, Best Buy at one time, and I don't mean to pick on them because I don't want to have a gang of attorneys sitting up on my front door saying that I shouldn't have said that. What I am suggesting is don't do something like that. Don't be the dealer that back in 2003 and 2004 said, look, I'm not going to build a website, or I'm not going to put pricing on my inventory, or I'm not going to load inventory. I'm going to make them come to me. That's what I was saying. What I'm saying is be progressive. Get out in front of what the consumer really wants, be able to provide it for them, and give them a good experience.
I agree. We don't have a lot of questions, so I definitely want to get to these next few questions shortly here. Bruce, thank you so much for the great response, and thank you for finding out that it is in fact illegal. Okay, your next question comes to you from Allison, and she says, how can I tell if people are showrooming in my dealership? That's a good question, Allison. I mean, and then I have a follow-up question to that. So let's say you figure out that somebody's showrooming in your dealership. What do you do? Do you go up to them and say, yo, what are you doing on your cell phone over there, palsy? I mean, what do you do?
Well, I think that there's nothing that you can do to definitively identify a consumer showrooming on your showroom, other than I mean, think about big box retailer. If I'm sitting there and I'm on the Amazon app, then I'm probably showrooming. I'll tell you, and I wasn't going to mention them, but I referred to them a couple times earlier in the webinar. But TrueCar is the one who has the app. They're the closest thing, I think, to Amazon as far as price checking kind of application. So if a consumer, I mean, be aware of what's going on in your dealership. Like, everyone be aware. If you see them on Facebook, you're okay, somewhat. If you see them on TrueCar, know that they're probably checking your price. I mean, that's one of the surveys you can take, and it's 100%, right? And so make sure that you are acutely aware of what's going on with the consumer. I'll tell you when this happens is when the salesperson leaves a consumer, goes back to a manager to work on prices. If your process needs to change to stay with that consumer more or to be more interactive, you're going to help cut out, I mean, operationally, you're going to help cut out some of those opportunities, because consumers get bored. Like, I get bored when I'm sitting somewhere. I'm going to reach for my phone. They're going to do the same thing when you leave them in the showroom.
That is so funny. Yeah, because they won't do it right in front of you, is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, some will, but the majority won't. So let's really work from a standpoint of thinking through the majority of the consumers. Majority of the consumers aren't going to do that. However, let's also make sure that we set up protection around that, so that when consumers are on these different mobile sites, that if we have the advertising opportunities there in that geo-fenced area, you can't advertise on your competitor's website. Don't mistake me for saying that. I did not say that. But if there are third-party sites that you can advertise on, and if they give you very good geofencing opportunities, that's an opportunity for you to kind of get in front of it, where you really can't, you can't perch over a consumer when they're in your dealership. Just know, based on the stats that you saw, that a good majority of these consumers are going to do it. And if they get that far into it, there's a high likelihood they're going to go to another dealership.
I do want to throw out this one comment that Carolina wrote in. Hi, Carolina. She says, I think you should keep entertaining things at your desk to help keep them off their phone while you are away from your desk.
You know what? I mean, this makes me sound old, which is really sad. But I sold cars pre-internet. Really, that internet age didn't really happen until I was almost at the GM level. But I had things on my desk for consumer. If I had to walk away, which was very rare, I hated doing it. I would rather communicate with my manager on the phone, staying in front of my consumer so I could really pay attention to what they were doing. But, we had simple things like evidence manuals and why buy here books and things like that. Think about what you can do to help fill that gap of time. That, from an operational standpoint, when they're already in your showroom, will definitely help you with showrooming.
I love it. Okay. Great comment, too. Thank you so much, Allison, for the great question, and Carolina for the comment. Your next question comes to you from Andy. He says, in your opinion, is there something that you can recommend to put on our website that might help with showrooming, maybe a plug-in or a landing page, anything that you can think of?
Well, self-serving, Andy. I would tell you that, I think our solution is really there's not a lot, just like dealerships aren't focused on showrooming, there aren't a lot of vendors that are really focused on showrooming. They don't understand it. I think that the website providers are doing a good job in what they do well in making sure that it renders perfectly. But I think that The two that I would recommend, certainly I think we're doing a great job of highly targeting those consumers, but what I offered earlier in the mobile texting, I absolutely think that's the best communication element, that best converting element on a mobile site.
Okay. All right. And I know you had mentioned before that chat is equivalent to texting, which leads me to my next question from Samantha. She says, wouldn't chat be preferable to texting just because of those folks out there with text message limits, or are text message limits pretty much non-existent at this point?
Again, my comment around I deal with the majority and not with the minority of consumers. I think that for the vast majority of consumers that have mobile devices that are purchasing cars, I think that they don't really have a texting limit. And so I would say that either chat or text is good. I think of from a consumer standpoint. Do they chat more? Do they text more? 4 or 5 years ago, they chatted more. Now they text more. So I'm going to go where the majority goes when it comes to conversion.
Understandable. All right. Next question comes to you from Jim. Jim says, can mobile ads run on any website provider?
So the answer is if they have mobile advertising opportunities, the answer is yes. Not every mobile site has advertising opportunities. And so, when we put our call to action on a mobile site, it actually renders perfectly across, traditional site all the way down to mobile. That gives us the ability to target. But if you're talking about, let's say, AutoTrader, for instance, AutoTrader has a mobile site and they have a mobile app, and there are advertising opportunities because that's what they do. They sell advertising. They don't sell inventory. They sell advertising for your inventory.
Right.
So Cars.com does the same exact thing. I assume that I don't know the advertising model for TrueCar other than what they sell to the dealerships as far as on a cost per sale basis. But Edmunds and all of the other third-party providers have those opportunities on there. And then I'll tell you another area, and this is actually, and please don't take this as self-serving, but one of the things that we didn't talk about in the AutoHook solution is that we actually partner with Verve Mobile, which is a mobile conglomerate of sites and apps. Apps like Spotify and Pandora, but there's this whole conglomerate, and we actually, as part of our mobile showrooming solution, actually do the same type of advertising incentive on those third party. So it gives that dealer that protection that I talk about. We want to protect their backyard. We want to conquest from the competing dealerships. We can do that not only on their site, but also in that, that sphere of mobile connectivity for that customer, not just on those mobile third-party sites like AutoTrader, Cars.com, and all those others.
Right. Great question. Thank you. Great answer, too. Our last question, I only have one more question to give you, David, and I fear that I will not be stumping you today, my friend, because I'm pretty sure you got this one handled. This one comes in from Tim. He says, what is the conversion rate using hook logics versus not?
Are we talking about specific to mobile or just overall?
Tim, do you think you could write back in and help us out with that?
Yeah, I'll answer overall first because that's the easier answer. Overall, what we typically see and how we measure this is by show rate. And so we typically, and this is why we work with a number of the website providers, including DealerOn, is we don't cannibalize lead opportunities on the site. It's actually extra. But what we really care about is how many people physically show up in the showroom. And the national average for showroom visitors off of leads is about 17%. So out of every 100 customers that walk or that submit a lead, 17 of them physically walk into a showroom somewhere. And so as we have monitored this for really 6 years and 4 years being out in the marketplace, we have over a 30% show rate. And so there is a considerable increase there. The mobile stats, to just go ahead and answer that.
Oh, and he did write, and he was curious about the mobile.
Yeah, it's too early to tell because we're doing this in subset test groups. But I can tell you, based on what we're seeing in the subset test group, just from mobile placement, because the traffic is starting to really increase, as we talked about, DealerOn's traffic has definitely increased in mobile and on tablet usage. We're going to see a little bit less than that 30% because we're very, very specific in the way that we're going after these consumers. And so I believe, just based on the numbers that I've seen so far, but I believe that if we're at a 15 to 16% show rate on those types of mobile consumers that physically, show up in a dealership, I think that's going to be really, really good because you're talking about, the very smallest part of the funnel where these consumers exist. They're making decisions, like big decisions. They're deciding that they're buying a car and they're deciding where they're going to buy the car, not up in the funnel where they're still investing and doing this stuff. And even when they submit leads here in the traditional side, they haven't made decisions. They just want more information. When they get here, and that's why I said earlier, I wouldn't expect 20 and 30 and 40 of these consumers to come in through this avenue, but the ones that do are unbelievably low in market because they're making a decision.
Great answer. Tim, I hope that helps you out. If you have a follow-up question, please don't hesitate to get that in because we actually have one more question that snuck in from Jeff. Jeff says, who do you go to set up geofencing?
That's a great question. There are a number of providers that are out there, and I don't want to give you one.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why I don't want to give you one, because I always side on this side of dealers, and I don't want to sound like I'm schlocking things. I really don't. Everything that I built, whether it was on the CRM side or now with AutoHook, has always been in the best interest of the dealer. And so I don't want to say, look, I believe that this specific one is. I would do some investigation and talk to people who don't have an affiliation to a product like me. Talk to people that are out in the marketplace, people who I trust, like David Kane and other industry trainers that are not affiliated with a specific piece. I think Brian Pash does a great job of kind of vetting out stuff. And so those are different people that I would probably ask that specific question. But I also believe that there's not one right answer. It's all about who serves you well. When I was at Mile One, there were industry-leading companies that we didn't do business with, not because we didn't like them. It just didn't fit into our model of what we were trying to build. So really think about that when you go and do business with, whether it's geofencing or really any different vendor.
Okay, well, I'm pretty sure Jeff was asking for your opinion. So who do you like for geofencing?
Well, we chose Verve, and the reason why we chose Verve was because we believed not only did they have a good geofencing opportunity for our consumers that we could meld into our showrooming solution, but we also thought that they had a great network. So, you could have a very, very specific geofencing solution, but not have a network in order to really help you, cover that area well, if that makes sense. So we believe that Verve is a good partner for us, and ultimately that's who we chose. But there are other ones that might have better specific solutions for your needs.
Okay, and they're asking how to spell it. It's V-E-R-V-E?
That is correct.
Verve, not Berg.
And you know what? I should have said it before the call. Like every time somebody says that, I get like a quarter, like Pat Riley gets a quarter.
Yes, Verve. Hey, and that was our last question, David. You are awesome. And audience, if you did not download those handouts, they're in the handout section. Go to webinar. If you look on the GoToWebinar interface, look for the section called Handouts and download those 3 awesome handouts that David gave you. They are free and they are chock full of great information for you. So I really hope you take advantage of that. And yes, it was Verve, V-E-R-V-E. And David, You rocked me, man. You are seriously, really, really a great speaker and very sharp. You got to come back on my show. I'm kind of surprised you and I have not webinared before today, actually, because I know our companies do a lot of good things together, and your name has just been floating around, and I never got you on my show until now. Please don't make it be too much longer before you come back again and entertain us with another wonderful presentation like that.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity, and certainly if you call, I'll show up.
Okay, I like that. All right, well, I want to remind you, audience, that a link to download a copy of this webinar recording is going to be emailed to you later today for your reference. Please share it with your friends and colleagues, and today's webinar is also going to be posted online within 24 hours. Just go to dealeron.com/webinars to view our upcoming webinar schedule or access any of our past webinars too. Also, this webinar is going to conclude in just a moment, and when it does, you're going to receive a short survey. So fill it out. We want to know what you thought of today's presentation. What did you think about David Metter? Give me the straight skinny. I want to know. All right. Today we're going to randomly select a couple of people from all those completed surveys to also win some Google prizes. And invitations will be going out tomorrow for our next webinar. How you can drive sales and service by joining the YouTube revolution. YouTube is truly powerful, and it's the most popular website. It's the second largest search engine in the world. So why are there so many dealerships that have yet to take advantage of it? If you're not using YouTube to improve conversion, traffic, customer loyalty, branding, or sales, you are missing an enormous opportunity. Is your dealership using YouTube to drive sales and service? If your dealership has been holding off from fully utilizing YouTube, then wait no longer. The experts are here and they're ready to help. In this 1-hour webinar, Peter Lito, automotive industry strategist on Google's Automotive Jumpstart team, and Mr. Video himself, Phil Sura from the automotive division of UnityWorks Media, are going to focus on website video strategies and best practices that dealers can use to drive conversion and sell more cars. They will also cover crucial research, metrics, and common mistakes. It's time to join the YouTube revolution if you're ready to learn how to leverage Google and YouTube to sell more cars and boost your service department. Then don't miss this opportunity to hear from two of the most knowledgeable people in the industry. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions regarding these webinars and our topics, feel free to contact me directly. Again, my name is Eliana Raggio. I'd love to hear from you, so track me down online. Facebook, Twitter, Google+. I'm on all the automotive social networks. Or, you know what, just email me directly at eliana@dealeron.com. Thank you all so very much for spending this time with us today, and I hope to see you all on another webinar in DealerOn's continuing education series. Take care.